The story begins on a dark island reeking with monsters. The scene then switches to an immensely powerful man with a calm stance standing before a violent creature. Just then, the man's eyes blazed brightly, and with a swift motion, he released a damaging blast that completely destroyed the creature. Lu Sheng awoke in the middle of class, his eyes unfocused and bleary, his classmates laughing at him as the teacher pointed a finger at him, disappointed for him sleeping during his class. The teacher claimed no one would even see Lu Sheng as a bricklayer since the blood energy requirement is 0.8. As the class was dismissed, Lu Sheng's friend approached him, offering to treat him to snacks and take him to the internet cafe, but the constant nightmare Lu had been having was constantly bugging him for quite some time. Lu Sheng did not know, but it was fate that brought him to this ice sky. He had been an exceptional student, focused on acing his entrance exam, but now he had to focus on an entirely different way of survival. Lu Sheng couldn't help but notice the similarities between his old life and new life. The only difference was the incredible level of martial arts here. As Lu Sheng peered at the screen televising the recent win of the 8th Legion successfully fending off another wave of monsters, he was shocked as he saw a delivery woman carrying an enormous box of packages like it was nothing. Lu couldn't believe it as he wished that he could have power like that. The sun was setting as Lu Sheng started to walk back to his old, run-down apartment. His mother was applying medicinal patches to his father's back, despite the pain they were going through. His parents' faces lit up at the sight of Lu Sheng. His father got dressed, but the bandages symbolized the effort he put in to provide for his family. Lu Sheng suggested that his father get an acupuncture machine, but his father simply smiled, saying that he could withstand any pain. His father then took out 2 small containers, which he showed to Lu Sheng. It was a new supplement that cost a staggering $20,000, a fortune for a family like theirs. Surprised by his father's kindness, Lu Sheng struggled to hold back his tears. Lu Sheng's parents then asked if his blood energy levels reached the 0.85 mark. He felt a little nervous. He headed to his room as focused as can be. He then began the body-strengthening technique, a combination of martial arts, ancient yoga, and judo created for beginners to create a powerful and effective foundation. Lu Sheng took a deep breath before entering a vision of the event that changed the world 300 years ago. The world entered chaos as creatures started emerging from the ground and the sky. As the chaos was erupting, humans started to mutate genetically, causing them to gain unimaginable power and launching a new age of martial arts. But even with their new powers, the humans still found themselves at a disadvantage against the monsters. Buildings were being destroyed, and the humans were forced to retreat and recuperate. After the body-strengthening technique was finished, Lu Sheng was drained of all his energy. Despite his best efforts, his blood energy level never increased. Sweat dripped down his face as he caught his breath. He was still determined even after facing adversity. He knew that his parents sacrificed so much for him, and he did not want to let them down. He then stood up. He suddenly started to feel dizzy. The world spun around, and then he collapsed onto the ground. Lu Sheng woke up, but he was not in his bedroom. Instead, he found himself in what appeared to be a nightmare. Lu Sheng tried to wake up from this nightmare, but just then, a zombie rushed him, its mouth inches away from his face. On previous nights, Lu Sheng had fled from this monster, but this time he decided that he would kick the monster. Not satisfied enough, Lu Sheng grabbed a rock and started to beat the zombie brutally, repeatedly striking the monster until he took its life. The monster left behind a strange black liquid that oozed towards Lu Sheng. Just then, a daze of unfamiliar memories flooded Lu Sheng's mind. He saw a man speaking about his decision to join the elite defensive squad. The man soon wore a military uniform and joined the prestigious base number 1359, where he went through brutal training. Then the memories shifted to the base being invaded by terrifying creatures. Due to the sudden overload of memories, Lu Sheng felt his heart racing. Lu Sheng stood in disbelief, wondering how he had obtained the memories of the zombie he just defeated. His arms started shivering, unaware of the incredible aura that was surrounding him. Just as he was pondering in his thoughts, a sudden attack came from behind. Without wasting time, Lu Sheng spun around and snapped the head off the enemy with a decisive blow, sending his body rolling away in a heap. Just then, the body started dissolving, and the same liquid started to ooze on Lu Sheng, just like before. Lu Sheng sensed a strange source of energy flowing into his veins. With a sudden spike of power flowing through his body, Lu Sheng realized that he not only had the power to retain the memories of those he defeated, but also could absorb their powers. Lu Sheng could not believe his eyes. He then remembered that he was in his dream. He took a deep breath and wondered if everything was real. Despite the surreal environment of his dream, Lu Sheng couldn't help but feel that there was something he needed to find. The memory of the military base number 1359 still remained in his mind, motivating him to unlock the secrets of this dream world. Suddenly he awoke from his dream. He was back in the human world where his sister was calling him for dinner. Lucina, Lu Sheng's only younger sister, took a look at Lu Sheng. His body was dripping with sweat. The chiseled body underneath his shirt made her blush. She then turned around and walked away. Lu Sheng reminisced on his youth when he and his sister were the best of buddies. But everything changed after Lu Sheng's first evaluation test, where his blood energy level was a ridiculous 1, and his power level was 100. This was nothing given that his sister was a prodigy destined for greatness. Lu Sheng took his shirt off and looked in the mirror. He was taken aback by his incredible physique, feeling not a hint of exhaustion, and all the memories and powers from the dream were still accessible. He was still wondering what the limit was to what he could do in the dream world. After changing his clothes, Lu Sheng walked over to the dinner table. When he was eating, he kept chowing down bowl after bowl. It was as if his mouth was a black hole. After finishing everything, he nervously had a look of guilt on his face, but his father took his plate and ordered his wife to make even more rice for Lu Sheng. His father was elated at his appetite, and even his sister was smiling. After dinner, Lu Sheng started walking to a nearby martial arts academy. The instructor was a level 4 martial artist and a popular person in the city. The hierarchy of martial arts is as follows. A level 1 martial artist is deemed standard if their blood energy level is 1.5 and battle strength at 150. A level 2 martial artist stands at a blood level energy of 15 and a battle strength of 1,500. A level 3 martial artist is at a blood level energy of 100 and a battle strength of 10,000. A level 4 martial artist must exceed a blood energy level of 200 and a battle strength of 100,000. As Lu Sheng approached the receptionist's desk, he asked about undergoing a test to see his blood energy level and his battle strength. Despite knowing that he may not come from a wealthy family, the receptionist still kept her professionalism. In the training room, Lu Sheng put his hand on a glowing crystal ball to see his blood energy level. To his surprise, his blood energy level had reached 0.963. A massive improvement from his former level of 0.7. Feeling another opportunity to prove himself, he faced another device, curious about his battle strength. He took a deep breath and got into the stance he memorized from the memories of the 2 fallen soldiers. With one swift movement, he struck the machine, and his battle strength came out to be at an impressive 113. Knowing that he had made all that improvement in an hour shocked Lu Sheng even more. He was fantasizing about what he could do if he spent 10 hours in his dream world. As Lu Sheng rested in bed staring at the ceiling blankly, he found himself unable to fall asleep. Frustrated, he flipped on the light switch. He decided that he would do some additional exercises. He took on a stance, preparing to do the body-strengthening technique. But something felt weird. While he was doing the technique, he performed unfamiliar moves. It was like he was trained to do them. As Lu Sheng continued to do the movements, he discovered that there were over 200 maneuvers that he could perform. Every time he practiced, he felt a surge of energy coursing through him. He also gained benefits when doing his breathing technique as his abilities were enhanced. A single trip to his dream world had felt like he had gained years of combat experience, leaving him surprised at his newfound power. As Lu Sheng completed the technique, he experienced a feeling. It was like his soul was being taken from his body. He felt a need for water, and his contents seemed like they were sucked out of him. Lu Sheng felt that regular food would not help him now. He required special supplements to maintain his newfound strength. However, Lu Sheng could not afford the supplements as the price of these items was ridiculous. Lu Sheng needed money to fund his ongoing growth. The next day, Lu Sheng was in the school gym, preparing for a combat lesson. The teacher, Mr. Zhang, was an experienced level 2 martial artist who had faced countless monsters head-on. However, Lu Sheng couldn't help but think that the movements and techniques Mr. Zhang was teaching were too simplistic and were leagues below what he had learned in his dream world. As Mr. Zhang finished his presentation, he called a popular student in the school to come spar with. Yang was not only good-looking, but he was one of the top students in the school, and his family was ridiculously wealthy. Yang was not a pushover, as his blood energy was at an impressive 1.2. After their spar, Mr. Zhang praised Yang, promising additional feedback after class. But despite the compliments, Yang couldn't help but sneer at the compliments in his head. Mr. Zhang then asked if anyone had enough courage to spar with him one-on-one, but all the students avoided eye contact, leaving him disappointed. However, just as Mr. Zhang was about to leave, his eyes met with Lu Sheng's piercing gaze. In Lu Sheng's eyes, Yang could see a formidable aura, one that he had only seen in those who had the intention to kill. Ming tried to get Lu back out, fearing that his friend would suffer a crushing defeat. However, Lu Sheng simply smiled and told Ming that he had nothing to worry about. As he stood in the gym, Yang arrogantly raised his hand and sneered at Lu Sheng, warning him to steer clear of his hand unless it shatters. Unmoved, Lu Sheng thanked Yang and announced that he was ready for a fight. Suddenly, Yang sprinted at Lu with the intent of ending the match. But to his surprise, Lu had dodged the attack effortlessly and landed a blow on Yang's face, sending him flying to the other end of the gym. As Mr. Zhang rushed over to check Yang's injuries, the other students looked in shock. They could not believe that Yang had been defeated with a single punch. Yang was rushed out of the gym on a stretcher, leaving his classmates shocked and bewildered. Lu Sheng felt a source of guilt for his actions and apologized to Mr. Zhang. But to his surprise, Mr. Zhang placed a hand on his shoulder. After a brief talk, Mr. Zhang invited Lu to his office.